Hello, listeners. My name is Charles Scott. Here we are this wonderful evening. Today we're going to give you some information that can be helpful with you in planning your daily life and also save you some money possibly, because today's topic, we're going to talk about some issues that could possibly occur with your home and what you can do to avoid those issues. And also, if you have a home right now presently, give you some issues on how to save some money on your insurance and planning and remodeling. My name is Charles Scott. I am the broker owner for Tri-State Realty, and the name of the program is called Can We Talk? It's an informative program. We talk about subjects that may be helpful during your daily life and some of the current events that are going on. There's quite a few things that are going on in the world, and you know, it's amazing how small a world that we have and how many things are related. A small thing as a container, well, I can't say it's small. A container ship getting stuck in the Suez Canal has disrupted all of the supply chain throughout the entire United States, and prices have risen because of that, and materials are hard to get. So a lot of things that happen when we read the newspaper and we see that they may happen thousands of miles away, and we may say, well, you know, that has nothing to do with me. Well, with the way the world is connected today, a lot of things have to do with the individual person out there, and as far as insurance rates or availability of getting merchandise or even raw materials. For example, in the last week or so, we've heard a lot about wildfires, all of the fires that have occurred in California, throughout the area. And when you say, how does that affect me? Well, if you've been around for the last couple of weeks and you looked up at the sky, you could see how gray the sky was, believe it or not. And you could look up and see, not only see the sky, but you could smell the smoke. I know I was at my home a couple of weeks ago, and I smelled a burning. It smelled something like a wire burning, and I said, what the heck is that? And you know, I looked around and I couldn't figure out what it was. Then I watched the news. Lo and behold, they said, well, if you smell the odor of smoke, it's from the wildfires that are happening all the way over in California. The smoke gets up in the jet stream and carries it all the way across the United States to the East Coast. So you can just see how in this world that we live in, how things are so small and how the world has shrunk and everything is interrelated. One of the things, for example, if you own a home or if you're looking to purchase a home, one of the things that you have to be concerned about is flood insurance. Flood insurance is a big thing right now, and it's always been big, but it's bigger than ever before now because of the cost of purchasing a home and the additional costs that you have. So if you're looking to purchase a home and you're going out there to buy a home, make sure you realize that if the property is in a flood area, the flood insurance is very expensive. Recently had an encounter where a person was purchasing a home and found out that it required flood insurance. When you go to purchase a home, the bank does what they call a flood certification, and they'll look on a map, it's a flood map, to see where your house is situated. If your house is situated within that flood area, well, now you have to get an additional insurance called flood insurance. Now, flood insurance in an average single family home can go anywhere from, if you're dealing with FEMA, now FEMA is the agency where if you're getting like a government-backed loan, you have to use that FEMA program, and that insurance can run from $3,500 to $4,000 or more a year. So if you're looking to get a mortgage and your house is in a flood area, you could be looking at $300 to $400 a month just for the flood insurance. Now that's not the homeowner's insurance, which covers you for fire, wind, hurricane, theft, and all of the other things. This is an additional insurance called flood insurance. So if you're looking to purchase that home, you know, you have to add another $300 to $400 a month onto that mortgage payment, and another $1,000 or $1,200 for just the other insurance. So you can be looking at another $5,000 just for the insurance alone. That has nothing to do with the mortgage principal and interest and the taxes. So, and then also that other insurance called PMI, which is if you put less than 20% down on the house, then you have to get another mortgage insurance. So all of that added up, sometimes it's so that a first-time home buyer, a buyer, may not even qualify for the mortgage because of all of that insurance. Now, I know this program, goes out a lot into the Stratford area. No one knows more about what I'm talking about than some of the residents of Stratford, Connecticut. In Stratford, Connecticut, if you're living in the South End, then you possibly know what I'm talking about. A lot of the houses on McKinley and Sedgwick and South Avenue and all of those areas on those particular streets, because it's low-lying and it's near the sound, you require flood insurance. And sometimes that makes a difference between being able to sell your home or not selling your home, or you have to find a buyer that can be well qualified and be willing to pay you for not only the house but the cost of the flood insurance. And it makes it more difficult when you can go a little further up into the north end of Stratford or up in the Barnum Avenue area and further up in the Paradise Green area, where the flood insurance may not be required, even though in a couple of those areas up there, there's a stream that runs down, and some of those homes require it. But in general, most of the homes in that area do not require the flood insurance. So what happens is that a lot of the people say, well, I don't require flood insurance. If your home is paid for, then the bank, you don't have a bank, first of all, so you're not paying flood insurance because the bank doesn't require it. But remember, if someone new is buying that house, they are going to be having to pay for the flood insurance. And also the maps change. Years ago, the areas in the flood maps were not where they are now. They were further towards the water. And over the years, with all of the flood, and with all of the storms that we've had, they've increased the area of the flood insurance so that homes that did not need flood insurance before now need flood insurance. And this is all across the United States. This is not just in the state of Connecticut where I am, because I have to realize this broadcast goes in the YouTube, it goes all throughout the United States. But this is happening all over the United States. Areas that normally were not flood areas are now considered flood areas. You will also see that the cost of the insurance not only goes up, what happens is that in some cases, if you are in a flood area and a storm comes through and damages your home or destroys your home, the building officials or the people that that run the cities, the building department, the zoning, they will not let you rebuild unless you raise your home up into the air. You may go along the shoreline of Connecticut, you may see homes, and it looks like you got to walk up, 2 flights of stairs just to get to the house. That's because if they want to rebuild that house, they have to put the house up in the air and then put in the lower level the concrete, so that in case the flood waters come in, it will not be able to come into the home. Now, that's one of the things that's going on. So I just want to make you aware that if you are looking to purchase a home, be aware of the surroundings, be aware of the cost. Another thing that's happened, this phenomena that's happened within the last 3 months, is I don't know if you've been to the lumber yard lately, or if you had to go to Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever to buy a piece of wood. Everything has skyrocketed. The cost of building a home, they say right now, the average cost of building a home has gone up by $36,000. That's a single family home within a matter of months because of the cost of the lumber. And not only that, the availability of the lumber. So everything has skyrocketed. And to build a house or to remodel your house, you'll notice that the cost has really escalated. And that's because a lot of the lumber comes out of Canada, comes out of the certain areas, and because of the tariffs, because of the additional cost, the costs have not only increased, but there's availability. In some cases, you can't even get certain items. Not only if the items are there, the other big cost right now is transportation and the supply chain. You hear all of this. The buzzword now is supply chain. Everything, where's it coming from? How do we get it here? Many of the items that we purchase in the United States come from China, you know. I mean, I remember growing up as a little kid, it seemed like every dish I overturned, or every little trinket, or little thing that I looked at was always had the little gold emblem that said made in China, made in China. Everything was made in China. And I used to think, boy, China must be the largest country in the world because everything is made there. But then when you actually look on the globe, or if you look, it's not really a big place, but they sure do make a lot of things that are sold throughout the world. Now, how does it get from China to wherever the country it's going to? It has to come by ship, by plane, or however they bring it here. Now, once it comes across the ocean, they have the containers. It comes across on the container ships. And then they put it in the tractor trailers or the airplanes, and then they distribute it across the United States. Well, the whole supply chain has been totally disrupted. First of all, truck drivers are hard to find right now. The trucks are down. It's hard to find the truck drivers. A lot of the airplanes, because they were not at full capacity and because of COVID, they're having trouble finding the pilots. Look at what happened within the last week. One of the airlines, they canceled over 2,000 flights. People were stranded all over the place. It's still going on as I speak. And that's because of once you start something up, now you have to get the supplies. Plastic is in short supply. Just an item like plastic cups, because people are out and people are going to restaurants and bars and people are out eating and drinking, and all of the stores are sucking up all of the plastic cups. Plastic cups are a very hard commodity to find right now. And you call around all the warehouses and you ask them for a 16-ounce plastic cup and they laugh at you like, where have you been? And so it's small things that we would never think of. A couple of weeks ago, a friend of mine has a restaurant. He was having trouble finding straws. So you figure all of these people going out to eat, and not only that, you have trouble finding the raw materials, the straws, the cups, the waiters, the cooks. You go into a restaurant, it used to be, we're advertising and we need waiters. Now you go in there and it's like everything. Waiters, cooks, busboys, this, that. In other words, you name it. Any business you go into, they're not looking for one person. They're looking for every single person that helps in the cashiers. Stores are looking for cashiers, people on the registers, meat cutters, this, that. So there's a big drive out. Because what happened is when you open the economy back up like that, then there's a surge of bringing back in the workers, and then all of the people flocking into the restaurants, and there's a shortage. Months ago, there was a shortage of chicken. You couldn't even, get chicken or different supplies. And this is going to continue for a while. In my industry, in the real estate industry, we are seeing record-breaking prices of homes selling for unbelievable amounts of money, and it happened like overnight. It's not like it was, normally inflation or you're selling a home and it goes up by maybe 1 or 2 or 3%, and that's considered normal. Well, the prices have been going up 20%, 30%, 40%, and that's a lot. And all of these prices will continue to go up. And I watched a very informative program the other day, and it was on the Bloomberg report and the financials reports. And they had a guest speaker on there, and I found it to be very interesting. And they were asking him, how long is this going to continue? Is this just a bubble? Is this just something where prices are going to go up and then all of a sudden the prices are going to fall back down? And he said, no. He said, this is the new normal for a while. And they said, well, what's going to happen? Look what happened in 2008, where a lot of people lost their homes. A lot of people were in foreclosure. He said, that's not going to happen. They don't foresee that happening at all this time. Because what happened going back in 2008 is they had the subprime mortgages. They had variable mortgages where people got into a mortgage and then all of a sudden the mortgage payment skyrocketed. This time around, most of the mortgages are all fixed mortgages. In other words, what you get into, the price stays the same for 30 years. So the mortgage payment doesn't escalate like in those old mortgages. Plus, in the other, going back in 2008, a lot of people bought homes, they paid a lot of money for them, and then they found out that they could not afford because they started off with a low interest. So they actually bid on more than they can chew, and they ended up owing a lot of money. This time around, it's different. You've got to realize the people that are paying all the money for these homes, in most cases, can well afford it because they're coming in from areas where the prices are totally astronomical. If you have an individual who lives in New York City and the average income in New York City for even the service workers is $80,000 to $100,000, because they're paying these people to live in New York, not to live outside of New York. And in New York, the cost of living is so high that the average person has to make a lot just to survive. And even then in New York City, that's not a lot of money. $80,000 to $100,000 is like, you know, it may seem a lot to someone who doesn't live there, but you know, that's like, they consider that poverty. You know, just to park a car in New York, if you own a car in New York, can cost you $5,000 to $7,000, $8,000 a year just in feeding the meter. Or if you have your own individual parking space, could be $10,000, $15,000. And so you're constantly, you know, going out in a restaurant. So the people that are coming in that are buying a lot of the homes in Connecticut, they are relocating from areas where they're normal, they're not wealthy, they're not, it's just that they have higher incomes. So if they relocate into a state like Connecticut, they can buy that $300,000 or $400,000 or $500,000 house, which may seem high to the first-time buyer, which it is high to the first-time home buyer in Connecticut. But these people coming from New York can well afford to pay for it, and they can pay for it in the future because they're still buying for a lot less than what they were already accustomed to paying in rent anyway. If you're living in the New York area and you're paying a rent of $3,000 to $4,000 a month, which is normal for that area, and now you come to a state like Connecticut and your mortgage is normally, let's say, $2,000, $2,500, actually you're saving money. So if you've been living in New York for the last 15 or 20 years, you're used to paying high housing costs. So you come into a state like Connecticut, and yes, to us it may seem high, but to them they're saving money. Not only that, they are able to come into the area and purchase their own home versus renting. And you know, sometimes it's cultural shock. You know, me being in the real estate business and everything, I'm so used to dealing with people that, you know, they know what a furnace is, they know what a lawnmower is, they know what a hot water heater is, they know how to, you know, repairs around the house. When you're dealing with people that have actually lived in high rise, maybe a person's lived in the high rise up in the, you know, 90th floor in a condo or whatever it may be, and they relocate to their own home. They've never seen a furnace. They don't know what a boiler is. They don't know what a hot water heater is. You know, they always had a management company. Something goes wrong, you call the management company. So sometimes when they're walking around, they look at different properties. They have to figure out what makes that property tick. How does this work? What's a circuit breaker? What happens when the lights go off? What do you flip this switch? In New York or an area like that, when the lights go off, the whole city shuts down, and Con Ed gets out there and they have all their workers working night and day, and boom, the lights come back on. Well, you know, so it's a different type of culture. These people can afford these homes, but the main thing I'm pointing out is that the prices won't drop anytime soon because there's enough fuel to fuel the fire, and people coming in, people buying. Don't expect prices of lumber to go down too much anytime soon, because you know what? After you cut all the logs down and after you build all of the homes, you know, and you plant the new seeds, you know, it's not like you put it in a test tube and voila, we got lumber all of a sudden. They got to plant the trees have to grow, trees have to be cut down, they have to be created into lumber. So all of these things take time. And the time it takes to do all of these things is the prices will stay high until the market survives. And so this economist was saying, well, this is the new normal. And one of the points that he made was that the person who was questioning him was saying, well, the people are overpaying for all of these homes. And he's saying, what is overpayment? In other words, if the value of something is based upon what someone is willing to pay, that creates value. So if a lot of people are willing to pay what the price is or more, then that is the value. That's the new value of that item. You see it all the time in art auctions. If you go to an art auction where they auction off art, and if they auction off coins, and you see people, they bid one against the other. This one bids that, this one. So it keeps going back and forth. And then you see in the paper, well, this piece of art sold for $5 million. Previously, it only sold for $4 million or $3 million or whatever it may be. So now that becomes the new value of that piece of art. And they have tons of people that show up at all these auctions, fill the rooms up looking to bid because they want to get in and buy the item, because in the long run, that's how they set up their retirement. People, they don't buy the art just to put it on the wall, just to look at it. That art is for their retirement, is for their investment. If they've got money sitting in the bank and it's earning them a quarter of a half of 1%, and then by the time they pay tax, they're right back where they started from. The way they look at it is they can invest in art. They can buy things that the average person would never in the world ever think about buying or wonder why they're even buying it. But they buy it because they're looking at the future value. And the value is determined by the scarcity of the item and the amount of people that want to buy that item. It's called supply and demand. And as long as the demand is there, the item will always fetch a higher price. And if the higher the demand and also the scarcity of the item, the price will increase. So that's what happens when it comes to real estate. And the same thing is happening right now with the real estate. When you're looking to get lumber, or if you're looking to get workers, or no matter what it may be, the cost is going to be determined by how readily available these people are to go out there and work. So you have to take that into consideration. Another question that they asked the gentleman is, should we buy? And he said, yes. He said one of the things was, he said, buy now, or if you're in a position to sell, sell now and buy now. And the other question was, well, if I sell now, I'm still going to have to buy high. And he said, yes, that's true. But what you buy high in the long run will appreciate, so you're still ahead of the game. He says you're going to sell high and buy not high, but buy whatever is the value at that particular time. You can't look at it as buying high. You look at it, well, I'm buying this now, and the value later on will be worth more money. Because when you bought that original house and you bought it then, it seemed like a reasonable buy. And if you had said, well, it's costing me too much, I'm not going to buy it, well, you wouldn't be in the position that you're in now with the equity that you have in your particular property now. So you have to look at equity, how what's going to happen with that particular property. And yes, in the past, in the 80s, and a lot of things happened, but a lot of people had variable mortgages where they, first of all, bought more than they can afford, and they already ended up in trouble. The banks now are very, very careful. They qualify you. People come into me and they want to buy a house, and I say, have you been qualified? If they say no, then I say, well, you have to get qualified. And the bank will sit you down. They'll figure out how much money you make. They'll figure out how much savings you have. And they'll look at your credit. How did you pay your past bills? The main thing they're going to look at is, do you have the ability, based upon your income right now, to buy what you're buying now? And they're not going to count in all of that overtime unless you've been getting that overtime for over 2 years and consistently, and your employer is going to state that it's going to continue. If your employer says, oh no, we only needed that overtime for 3 or 4 months, the bank's not going to count that extra money. In the past, they counted it. In the past, they even had mortgages where they didn't even count your income. Oh, if you had good credit, oh, you're good enough, buy a house. If you pay your bills, then you're going to pay us back. We don't care how much money you make. That's how people got in trouble. Banks are not doing that anymore. So they're looking more carefully. Right now, banks are making more money than they've ever made before. They're flushing money. They're making because they're careful in their lending practices, but also at the same time, they're looking out for your good to make sure that you do not get into trouble. So all of these things are happening. There's a lot of things that are occurring. The world is changing. The supply chain is changing. So you have to be able to look into and it's not, how can I say it, rocket scientists. You just have to be aware of your surroundings. You have to study, you have to read, you have to watch informative programs on finance, budgeting, know how to pull equity out of your property and put it in the right places, how to invest, because you get old quick. Things go by fast. Before you know it, the kids are just born and they're little kids. Next thing you know, they're in grammar school, high school, college. They're gone. You're stuck there. And then all of a sudden you're saying to yourself, what am I going to do now? What's the future hold for me? Where do I go? How much money have I saved? What's going on? And all of that happens in today's times very, very rapidly, because nothing is really guaranteed, but you can plan, and you have to have a plan. You have to have a plan, and then you have to correct the plan. The plan can be changed many, many times, before you get to your goal. You have to have a plan and then have a backup plan and a backup plan and a backup for the backup plan. And you have to keep changing course. When a ship leaves out of harbor and it goes all the way to another port, they have to correct that ship many, many times before it gets to where it's going. You see the person up there, he's looking at that little computer and he's changing from here. The wind pushes the ship this way, the water pushes it this way. So they're making corrections constantly. 4 or 5 people in there just correcting every second, every minute where the ship, until it ends up at the port. In your own life, you have to do that too. You have to make corrections, and you have to be informed to make sure that you're trying to make the right corrections so that you can get into port from one side to the other and attain your goal. So hopefully today I've given you some information to think about, something that can help you with your life and your planning. My name is Charles Scott. I'm the broker for Tri-State Realty. And like I said, I try to give you informative conversation and maybe make you open up your mind and think a little bit and do something that will plan for not only you, for your future and for your children and for your family. Until next week, God bless.